yet, but that could just be that it's still loaded. We'll know in a second.
And we're on.
Oh, I'm kind of off to the side. I'm going to go back on the Twitch again. Just because I need to make sure that the audio levels are working.
Yeah, I'm going to unmute Twitch, see if I can hear you.
Can you hear me now? Yeah,
I
am I
can hear
there?
you on
Am I
Twitch.
there?
You're coming through.
All right, awesome. It's not coming up on the app though, but it just might be a little bit delayed. But if you can hear us out there, hello and welcome to another episode of World Salad, brought to you by Long Island Tabletop or LITT. I am John, as always, and I'm joined by my fellow co-host Jonah.
Usually.
For the most part, yeah, I feel like you've been here more often than not in the last few
Well,
times.
I was going by if you're always John, I'm usually Jonah.
Oh, What were you? If you're not Jonah, then what would you go by?
Oh, man.
Big Papa Pump, the man with the plan.
I like the man with a plan.
Yeah,
Um, the Action Man is also my other most known alias.
the Action Man. I
Yeah.
find that incredibly hard to believe, but
John, if you doubt the Action Man, then the action's going to come to you.
anyway, for those of you who are watching, this is another one of our. Do me a favor, Jonah. Talk real quick.
This is me talking. I am talking now. I'm vamping.
Yep,
I'm
yep,
just
yep.
saying
Audio levels
words
are
to you.
working. That's good.
Okay,
We're good. We're
fantastic.
good. So again, this is a bi-weekly world-building show where we come up with some ideas, concepts, and things like that to work out for any D&D role-playing or whatever that you might be working on or developing. We actually have the setting in mind this week. We determined that in advance before the show.
Yeah. Oh,
Uh,
so John, just to introduce the segment, we're going to be running back for the third week in a row, everyone's new favorite segment, 60-minute settlements, wherein John and I establish a setting in 60 minutes or less.
yeah, it's given us some pretty interesting results so far. So we rolled before the show that tonight's setting would be war slash espionage, or like a could be like an operatic kind of game or whatever. There's a few
Yeah.
different ways that can go.
Yeah. It could be super hard gritty. It could be more of a spy opera. It could be fantastical. It could be sci-fi. It could be grounded. These are all things we're going to figure out. Mainly, we wanted to roll the genre beforehand just because we're still figuring out how to best do this segment. And we thought by rolling it beforehand, we can get some of the really dumb ideas out of the, like, not dumb ideas, but basically we'll already have something to work off of. So it's not going to be total improv.
Well, so like let's start with the first thing I mentioned is that we might want to determine what time frame this is taking place, because that could very much steer the game in a couple of different directions. I mean, if you
Mm-hmm.
can go far flung future, then you have more of like a space opera kind of option you can go with. If you go in the past, you can have like a medieval, kind of conspiracy kind of situation, kind of like a Game of Thrones scenario.
Yeah.
You can even do something like like a civil war, like a colonial combat, or like World War. I mean, there's a lot of places you can go with war slash espionage. You can even do Cold War. You can do where it's all
Yeah.
a combat of like information and stuff like that. So
Yeah.
I'd like that. I want a challenge out there that our thing that we're going to develop on is under the idea of a Cold War scenario, regardless of what
Okay.
setting or time frame it lands in. Just more of a battle of knowledge and intrigue. Really play up the espionage
Yeah.
side, less the actual war. Because I mean,
I mean, I'm super into
you could
that.
always go into the if you need conflict, there's very easy ways to just jump into that.
Yeah. I mean, like, think of Captain America: The Winter Soldier, that movie. That was basically a battle for information. Like, they wanted to know who was doing what.
Or even like 007, GoldenEye, stuff like that.
Okay, yeah, the actual gold standard
James Bond.
spy movies.
Yeah.
James Bond.
So what do we want to start with, Jonah? What do we feel like we need to develop
Uh,
this scenario? So
I
if we're
think,
talking about we kind of have the idea, but we're not necessarily talking about or focusing on a campaign, or maybe we are. Like, what's the groundwork? What do we start with?
well, I would say first things first, we want to determine how grounded this setting is. Like, is it fantastical? Is it somewhere, like, is it just like past Is it present? Is it future? Or is it like hard sci-fi?
Well, I also think that like even if you do like fantasy, like I don't think even if you roll heavy on the fantasy side, like it doesn't necessarily need to be a full on like, Lord of the Rings, Game of Thrones style. It could be like a much more like, all right, yeah, yeah, there is some fantasy stuff going on, but this could still be a very grounded conflict.
Well, yeah,
Um,
I would say it could be like early Game of Thrones, not like late Game of Thrones,
let's say then, what
and
if we're
that
focusing
kind
on
of
a
thing.
specific setting? So like, I'm thinking like somebody stationed in a certain place to try to get information and get
Okay.
one ups on people. Um,
Yeah, I mean we can definitely make the setting be like like
have you ever played Blades in the Dark?
I've heard a lot about it, but if you can give the audience a refresher, that'd be great.
Blades in the Dark is kind of like this, where you're running as like a gang, like you and the other players are all part of a gang, and you're making moves and attacks against other like factions in the city or whatever. It's a bit fantastical because there's like ghosts, and like you can't leave the city because if you leave the city, like there's bad stuff out there.
Okay.
Um, but like there's like ghosts and weird supernatural stuff that's happening. So if you like want to determine like how fantastical we want to make, you want to roll a d10, Jonah, and then that would determine how quote unquote grounded this actually is. And again, it doesn't mean like fantasy; it means how fantastical some of the elements in this world are. So when we lead into
Yeah.
certain things, it tells us how much we lean into those.
Well, John, I don't know if this is going to make things easier or harder, but I got a 10.
You rolled a 10.
I rolled a 10 on the fantastical. So, not necessarily like orcs and goblins, but there's
It just means whatever
a
whatever the
hard,
setting is.
hard fantasy element. Yeah.
Right, like there's definitely like this could be as far fetched from reality as necessary. I think
And
that's
yeah,
probably a good way to put it.
and because we're saying fantasy, we're not just saying D&D because a lot of sci-fi stuff is just fantasy, but you replace magic with, machine guns.
Well, why don't we skip some of the categories and jump around a little bit? Let's jump into technology.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking this might have to be a D10 because I think we very much could have
Agreed.
an
Yeah.
idea of like so. Let me get you to roll that D10, Jonah.
I'm hot tonight. I got a 9.
Cool. So this is like a high tech scenario situation here. I think what
Yeah.
we need to do is I think we need to have an actual dice roller on the stream so people can see the rolls themselves. Um,
I have
I'll
no idea how to set that up.
I no, I would do that myself. So hold on. Roll dice with friends. I have to change this from Dan's dice room to World Salad. Dice with friends. Name the man. All right, I'm going to send you a link in chat,
Okay.
and I'm going to share the dice roller.
In the in
Yep,
the Zoom call chat or in the Twitch
in the Zoom
chat?
call chat.
Great.
And then once you click on that, I'll see you just need to come up with a name for yourself.
I'll make it very easy. I'll make it my name on Twitch.
That works.
Uh, Roll it.
Sick Mango, perfect. All right, and I just need to capture this into the stream.
Guys, we're doing it. We're living in the future.
I need to get. Does it have to be its own thing? Yeah, it has to be its own tab. Open, move tab to new window. There we go. There we go. Roll dice with friends. Don't get the cursor. There we go. Shrink it down. Whoop. Blow it up a little bit.
We're almost there, guys. We're almost there, team. Not that big, John.
I'm cleaning it up. Relax.
I will not relax. I'm relaxed.
We just need the most recent thing there. So there we go.
Yeah.
Drop it down. Drop it down. Perfect. So now we have it in this in the thing.
Yeah. Great. So I rolled an 8. And what was it 8 for again?
What was that?
What was the 8 for
We were doing
again?
for tech. The 8, like you rolled a 9 before, so I'm not saying that we have to go by. Like we could still take the 9, but going forward, you could use the just use the roller in here so we could see it.
Okay. Gotcha. Yeah, so we'll keep my 9 from before.
So it's a
So
high
we're
tech. It's a high tech setting.
yeah.
Do
So
we want to
here
go with?
well hold on, John. Here's my question for you. And this might be missing the point, but what's the difference between a 9 and a 10 here?
That's a good question. In something of like technology, I would think that in a 10. So the only thing I could think of would be I would say a 10 would be at the utmost scale in that it's
Hmm.
that classic line of like the distinction between magic and technology is that when both are so advanced they could easily be seen for the other.
Okay, so just to have like common examples, would a 10 be like Star Trek, where they have like matter replicators, teleportation beams, like FTL
Yeah, like
travel?
really crazy stuff. A nine would probably be like in my mind. I'm envisioning like Shadowrun, where like there's still some, or
Okay,
maybe like the Matrix, where there is robots, there is cyber technology, there is
yeah,
cloning. It's just that there is still some need for a grit, if that makes sense.
yeah. Maybe like
Because
an
like a
eight.
six, because like I'd say like a 6 or a 7 is like where we're at right now in society, and 8 would probably
Yeah,
be like the
we are
next
kind of
step from where we're
living
at currently.
we
I
are
mean,
kind of living in the future.
we have
I
robots
would say we're
now.
at a
Like we have robots now. We have virtual technology. It's just
yeah.
not to high levels yet.
I would say we're probably at a 6.
I don't know
Um,
about that.
you think we're at a 7?
In terms of technology, like yeah.
What's a 6 then? I guess 6 is just like 20 years ago.
I mean, like a 5 would be like the balance between, let's say, like modern and still like old stuff. So like a 5 would
Okay.
probably be like I don't know, like post-industrial revolution, and then like a 6 would most likely be
Hmm.
like as they started to like really kind of get stuff. So maybe like the assembly line. 7 is where you start to get like computers and things like that. So
Okay, so right now we're at a 7. Within the context of our setting, we're at a 9. So yeah, so using the matrix as a frame of reference makes a lot of sense because assuming what we see outside the matrix is reality, we're a pretty advanced society.
yeah,
And within this specific setting, I would argue we're at that point without being enslaved to robots.
yeah. So next thing I would think is, what do we do? Medicine? Like, what's another direction to go?
Um, I feel
We're
like
talking espionage. We've got a high. We've got a. But the also thing is we kind of rolled on the fantastical, so that's why I'm thinking like a nine's gonna put us of like.
this is like we're probably looking at a space station.
I'm thinking more like it's something on like a 9 is probably like we're in a place where there could be full on like tech wars of like we're gonna be like hacking into to like an AI space of like
Yeah.
they like maybe like a 9 to be like a especially like with fantasy like it could be like a Batman Beyond kind of scenario that we got going on.
Oh, that'd be sick. I love Batman
Modifications and
Beyond.
whatnot. So that actually would probably make a lot of sense. Of like a granted, maybe a little bit less on the heroic side, but
Yeah,
more of like
I
we
could
have
live
like
as far
actual robot ninjas who are doing like corporate espionage.
as the day-to-day stuff. Sure, I kind of like our specific viewpoint to be more of a non-combative thing, like much more like using Shadowrun. We're more deckers than Street Samurai or like Faces.
Well, I mean, so how about this? We got a 9 for high technology. We got a 10 for the fantastical. What if the place that we're talking about isn't actually, and this is snowballing off the Matrix here, what if it's not a physical place?
Ooh, what if we're lacunaing it?
What if we're no, not even lacunaing? What if we're
Yeah.
full on like Johnny Mnemonic, We are jumping into cyberspace to like steal information from the dark web.
That's so cool, and it could just
A
be
city
that
that like a city that takes place on the web.
a city of literal information. Everything is just bytes of information.
A role playing session in Second Life. This is my character. It is an anatomically correct jet engine. Um,
I don't want you to finish that statement, John.
so I think that actually would work. If
Yeah,
we're going full on
I'm
espionage,
super
so we're
jazzed.
so cyber. So now that gives us a lot of places to work with. So now, like, I'm done. Population could still work because it could be how secretive is this place. So do we want to roll on the
Yeah,
population side? Now, do we
I
want to
I
like
think we definitely do. Yeah,
now like maybe like not necessarily on a 10, but do we want to do like a 4 of like start with like each one is like a certain number preset and then it just increases exponentially from there.
sure. Yeah,
So you think like a D4 would work?
D4 sounds good to me.
All right, let's see what happens. Give me a roll on that web roller.
That'll be a 3 for me. It should be coming up in a second, hopefully.
Yeah, if you rolled it on the website, it should pop up.
Yeah, I certainly did. Do you have to refresh on your page?
No, it should pop. I see it on the website here.
Oh, and it just came up on the stream.
Okay, I'm wondering maybe if I actually have to have the thing up, but I'm not positive.
I truly have I know nothing about this.
It's fine. So we have a 3. So we are dealing with a high dense population kind of
Yeah.
web thing. So we're going full
This
on
is
like
a high traffic site.
right.
Uh, Probably not quite Reddit large, but
No, no, no,
what?
no. If we're talking like out of a 4, I'm thinking that definitely could make sense. Like
Yeah, I guess Reddit does make it. Yeah, it's a place that like not everyone's on it, but a lot of people are there.
yeah, I'm thinking like it's something like think about like again, we're talking about like a physical place here. So well, not a physical place. We're talking about a
Yeah,
physical in appearance
yeah,
place that's in a digital
a
center.
cyber domain given physicality, basically.
Right. So in that sense, I'm thinking like an actual full scale city in the cyber world makes
Yeah,
sense.
I mean, certainly if we're using Reddit as like, as our grounded example, just to jump off from, that could be a whole city. That could probably be a whole country. But
Right.
yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense because oh man, this is so cool. Because now that I'm thinking about it, getting more into it, every like nook and cranny is just a different link or different page in the
Message
website.
boards. Right. It could literally be like
Oh
message
man,
boards where like it's like your mods or your people who are lurking in like a massive message board site that maybe is represented by like a city and you're ducking around trying to find information because people know that there's information out there that you're trying to either get to or prevent people from getting to.
I also love the idea that the characters, like the main characters, are like used being mods as like an alibi basically for what they're
Well,
doing.
there's a few ways you can go with that as players. Then it could be that you're hired by people to act and serve as people on the web to do like like I'm trying to police things to make sure the information is safe and secure, or it could be that you're hackers trying to get information to bring about like a cultural revolution or a societal revolution. It could be that you're government agents trying to get information to benefit your government in such a way. So it's
Yeah,
like
totally.
there's a lot of different ways that you can go as players. So let's keep going. So let's think. So we're not going to necessarily need food or medicine because those kind of don't
Yeah.
really apply.
Well,
Um,
can we maybe think analogs for those in the cyberspace?
um, I
I
think
can't off the top of my head.
I think we gotta go more with fleshing out like what this place has instead of like
Sure.
what it needs.
Okay. Sounds good to me.
So crime. I think crime and underworld elements. That's a big one.
Yeah, I feel like
because that's going to determine whether like I mean, this place could actually be like an illegal site that other people are
yeah.
jumping into.
Are we on the dark web or are we on like the easy streets?
I
Right.
would say that this is probably a D6. Like, it's not what we want the focus to be, but if there's a lot of crime, or if the crime element is, or let's say if we end up on the high scale of crime, that could be a big thing. So
Okay,
once
well,
you make that roll,
I did. It should come up in a second, and I got a 6.
oh geez, so we are,
So that's a hell of a lot of crime, right?
yeah. That means that okay, so that means that this literally is a dark web location. Like this is a place that is heavily either infiltrated or owned and operating by illegal entities.
Yeah. So, man, we had a high population to this site, but it's also super illegal. So what does that say about the world we're in?
Yeah,
Like, I wow, that's actually that informs a lot about the setting without even building the web page.
but that could also even be like a taunting site or stuff like that. Like there's a lot of ways that you can be like. There could
John,
be
we're
things
we're
where
we're, build, we're
people
building the
lose
future
certain
Pirates
resources.
Bay.
What?
We're building the future version of the Pirates Bay.
Yeah, basically.
It's incredibly illegal, but everyone's there.
I think we need to determine factions because I think that could like rivals
Yes.
and threats.
Yes.
Um, I
You
think
think
that
that
might
could
be
be
another.
another?
I'd say that might be another D6.
I was feeling D6 for that as well.
All right, go for it.
Luck be a lady tonight. We have 6 competing factions, John.
Holy cow!
I
So
don't think we need to flesh out the factions,
no,
but
no,
we
no,
do
no.
need
But I
to
mean,
know
there's
that
a
there are
lot of ways that
6.
you could break that down. So if you have like six
Yeah.
six different like subcategories you could break things into.
I
Um,
feel like from our perspective, this means that there are 6 competing like corporations or like countries or whatever trying to get out the information that's stored somewhere on this site.
it could even be that like the site itself is operated by some third party, and there's a bunch of illegal people who utilize it for their own gains. So
Yeah.
like think about it. Like somebody might not necessarily want to be doing the illegal stuff themselves, but they're definitely up for hosting it. And as a result, like this is heavily used. So then you have like the actual moderators or the people who are controlling things, and then you have that's another cool thing for espionage and war of like, hey, I own this super illegal website that is used by a ton of people, and there's a lot of illegal stuff that's going on. Your task is to kind of, basically be like illegal internet police, of like,
Yeah, basically like dox them.
yeah, like make sure that things aren't getting too out of hand, or make sure that you get enough blackmail material that like if things ever go sour, like I have enough to kind of keep the right people
Yeah.
off my back.
Yeah, also not to cross genres too much because we're characterizing this as like a city on the internet. We have 6 factions. We have the one that owns the website. The other 5 could very easily be just competing gangs.
Yeah,
Like we could easily characterize them as no matter who like is supplying them or who like is hiring them, they function as gangs within our internet city.
this could even be like you do something of like almost like an anime trapping of like this is a virtual online setting where you're right. It's a virtual city where there's stuff that's going on and different factions. Like you could have something that's relatively small. You could have something that's a huge organization. It's like
Mm-hmm.
it's this is this that's a lot of cool stuff to work with. So
Yeah.
let's see what else we can. What else do we need? I'm trying to think of like resources and value. So how valuable is this actually? Is this the site itself, or what is it? I think that might determine like maybe not necessarily. I'm trying to think of like a better way to phrase that because I would necessarily say resources and value would be in this situation. Maybe like what exactly is hosted here? Like I'm
Okay. I
trying to
mean,
think of like what's
when
the
for categorical stuff like that, I don't know how important a die roll is, but uh, it could be like the die roll here determines how likely new people are to come find it, because it could be that the huge population it has stems largely from like early
what if
adopters.
it's how well known it is? That could be
Sure,
something.
yeah,
Like
like
so,
like like reputation almost.
yeah,
You think
um,
you think a D12 for that maybe?
yeah. I'm fine with that.
Yeah. 7.
Okay, so I'm thinking that on a 7, it's the kind of thing that people probably have heard about, but is not
Hmm.
necessarily mainstream.
Yeah,
So it's
like
the kind of
people.
thing that like a guy, like everybody probably knows somebody that they work with or go to school with or whatever, or even hang out with that knows about the site,
Yeah.
but it's not commonly talked about. Or if they talk about it in the news, it's always talked about whether it exists or not.
So this is probably like, again, using real world examples. This is like if the Pirates Bay were just a little bit less mainstream.
I mean, even the Pirates Bay is not necessarily like something that like your neighbor next door might know about, but it's enough that
True,
news
true.
stories and journalists have talked about it.
Yeah,
So this
this is
is
like
probably
halfway.
something that like I'm guessing that if you want to Google this, like if you know what it is, there is stuff you can Google about if Google was a thing, like
But
in this world or whatever. You get the
you're probably
idea.
not going to find the
If you
web
wanted to
address
ask,
on
if you wanted
Google.
to ask Jeeves about this, Jeeves will have an answer.
I
But
don't. I
so
would
yeah,
hope that Ask Jeeves doesn't exist in this setting.
so the point is that the name is out there. Like
Yeah,
people know, but it is not necessarily like.
yeah. It's not a household name. It's not on everyone's like bookmarks tab.
But it's
But
common enough that like it
yeah,
is something that like what about this? What about difficulty to get into? It could be one of those things where people know about it, but how do they actually get into it? That could be something interesting with
yeah. It could be like you need.
accessibility, maybe. Like, because that would also determine, like, depending on that might help to inform what some of these other factions are or
It
whatnot
would
that
be. It
are.
would be kind of interesting to me if you needed like a login, but there was no way to make an account.
So, what would you maybe a D10?
Yeah, D10. Maybe a D8. I don't know.
Go for it.
6. So pretty hard to get into. It seems like.
We went for difficulty to get into.
Oh, you tell me. Is 6 easy or is 6 hard?
Um, Jonah, you decide that.
Uh, when I hear that the scale is difficulty, I think higher means more like the scale.
Okay.
So 6 means it's like it's not impossible, but
On
it's probably difficult.
yeah, well, on a D8, it's more than half. So,
Yeah,
I mean, granted, like it's so this is the kind of thing where it takes some hoops. The average person probably can't get into it. Like so
it
you might be able to
seems to
find
be
out
like
about it, but
yeah. I would imagine you probably need a friend who's
yeah,
already in it to give
you would
you a
need somebody
login.
who's already in it to kind of get you through there. Like
Yeah,
if I would say higher means like no, it's not that like you don't get in, people
yeah.
invite you.
It's probably also very user unfriendly because it assumes the people using it
Right.
like this is like when visualizing it as a city, it's a city with a lot of like twists and turns. It's not very well planned out.
So as for like so yeah, so we have a situation where we have a setting that is difficult to get into, highly technological, very extremely popular. A lot of people on it. Super illegal,
Yeah.
and
So
there's a lot.
how do we reconcile the fact that a lot of people use it, but it's not that commonly known?
Well, it's probably like so. Think of it this way: like, if a lot of people use it, but it's not commonly known. I mean, let me ask you a question, Jonah, and I want you to answer as sincerely as you choose to. Did you download anything illegally in high school or college?
Yes,
So
a
there you
lot.
go. It's one of
Okay,
those things where
that's fair.
your average person is not necessarily like let me rephrase that. Would your parents at the same time that you were doing that, would they know how to download something illegally or not?
Absolutely not.
So exactly. This could be
Even a
something
good
that's
number of my
this could be
contemporaries
something that's
wouldn't have known.
extremely popular with like younger people of like, hey, we are plugged into this thing. We are observing and we are checking this thing out, but nobody
Okay,
really knows or understands um, the average person might. So there could be a generational thing. Could be one of those things of like,
sure,
the
sure.
same thing with TikTok. I don't use TikTok. I know what it is, but like I know that it's popular, but I personally do not touch it.
Makes sense.
And TikTok probably is also getting information from its users because it's
Oh, it's bleeding people drive information.
so with that. what else do we need to develop? Like, do we want to keep working with what we have so far and try to
Uh,
like fine tune that, or do you want to keep throwing in some
yeah, I mean,
potential
I don't.
modifiers?
This isn't a dice roll, but I think we need to kind of decide what does this website do and what information is being stored here that's so prized. Because if we are going for the this is a torrenting site kind of thing, the first thing that comes to mind is there might be like some weapon technology
It
that's
doesn't even
like,
necessarily need to be a taunting site. I was just using it as an example of like the
yeah,
kind of things that there was definitely was a wide audience for, but a minimal understanding of, and eventually got to the point where, it was dealt with in a legal sense. But then also at some point it just became mainstream, but just in a different way. They changed it enough that like taunting just became just downloading stuff through the musical channels or streaming. Taunting basically turned to streaming in some sense.
hmm, truth.
So if we want to determine what the purpose of the site is, let's maybe think about what we have so far and figure this out. This is an espionage thing in at heart. So whether or not you're actually targeting individuals or you're targeting the site is something that I think like the storyteller would need to determine and dictate.
Yeah,
Because you can go either way. You can have it where it's not so much that the website itself is important, but the fact that it's difficult to get into, it's extremely popular, a lot of people use it, and there's a lot of maybe powerful people on it that, like, there is advantageous stuff to glean from there. I guess what we could determine is how much real world quote unquote conflict is there. Like maybe that's something to determine because that would maybe dictate what this like is this an ex and like
an
is there
extension of the
no,
real
yeah, like
world.
yes, like is this an extension of like real world conflict spilling over to the digital sense? Is it where there's not a whole lot of like turmoil in terms of like war going on in the real world, but there is still like jockeying for digital control, you know? So it's like, is there like actual conflict that this would be utilized for in some way, or is this more just again Cold War stuff, but in a more corporate well, not even corporate, in a more um, um, I don't know, like individual self benefiting way.
Yeah, I mean, I I I think I'm more interested with what happens in the cyberspace being kind of divorced from what's going on in the real world. Like,
Well, so then let's if we want to do that then. So I mean, if we don't necessarily want to make this place, but I think that but the only issue though is I think that then either we have to determine what this is used for, like you said, and if we want to just make it completely separate, like if there is, let's say, a real world war going on, but this website is completely different from that, what would cause it to be so desirable that a lot of people use it, even though it's super illegal or there's a lot of illegal stuff going on?
I
Like,
mean,
what is the
it might be kind of like WikiLeaks, where highly classified documents were leaked onto this website, and one team is trying to make it so that it's either recovered or deleted, and the other factions are just trying to get it for themselves. It could be that not even like from a governmental standpoint, but the owner's like personal information could be somewhere on this website, and the owner has hired the PCs to just hunt it down and get rid of it.
So it could be that. It could be that this is a virtual situation where, and it could be like, virtual in both the sense of like, it's just zeros and ones, but it could be that like, no, a file actually is located in a lockbox somewhere. The lockbox is just a physical representation of a digital representation of
Yeah,
like, rather than like, the next step, especially if it's high tech and high fantasy, it's this next step up above like a password of like, hey, I'm digitized. My digital thumbprint is used to open a lockbox where I am storing information.
yeah, and like instead of needing to put a physical key inside the lockbox, that's where like the like encryption comes in.
Right. Or it even could be that the digital world is just a visual representation of what is really just key strokes on a message board and stuff like that too.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of flexibility when it comes to that, and I think in this case, it is our responsibility to kind of decide what it is.
So, okay, I just had an idea.
Tell me your idea.
Conspiracy theory web board.
Cool.
This
Love
is a
it.
place where it's a conspiracy theory web board where there's a lot of weird stuff that's passed around. The reason why it's highly illegal is because there are people on there posting real stuff. Like, hey, no, we have aliens. Like, this is a thing. Like, I've worked on the spaceship, and it's like that's BS. Like, nobody would believe that. But if I try to go
Yeah.
to the news, either they're not going to believe me, or people are going to try to kill me. So, and it could be hyper
Yeah.
illegal because yeah, no, people dump stuff that could be like, hey, I'm gonna put something on a conspiracy theory website and nobody's gonna believe this, or don't click on that. That's probably a virus, but it's actually just like it's like a secret government program where we have a database of known compromised spy agents, and get it from here.
Yeah.
So
It could even be that there just aren't mods normally. And the PCs acting like mods is highly irregular.
well, I mean, that's like again developing the campaign stuff. I mean, if
Sure,
we're
sure,
talking about
sure,
like
sure,
more
sure.
of the setting itself, just the idea that the reason why
Well,
this place
but like
exists.
yeah, like an unmoderated website that's full of like people posting the weirdest shit. That's a very easy way to get illegalified.
It's also an easy way for like it not to be mainstream of like, and also super difficult to get into because it's like, hey, are you a narc? You got to tell us if you're a narc, right? And it's like,
Yeah,
no cops. So it's like you got to go deep undercover just to share blurry pictures of Bigfoot.
yeah,
I mean, granted, a high tech, high fantasy. Again, it could be like it's a some eclectic billionaire made his own version of Second Life, and it's really cool and interesting. Especially like if it's actual full on VR. Like you could go the whole anime route of like it's the way you jack into it is like neuro headsets that like you clock in and like your brain
yeah.
waves get uploaded to the internet.
I mean, I feel like we're sufficiently high tech as a baseline where people could just be partially robotic and they literally just jack into to the internet.
Yeah, it's like it's legit just Johnny Mnemonic.
I've never seen Johnny Mnemonic, but I feel
Keanu
like I
Reeves, weird virtual reality. Um,
wait. So Keanu Reeves was in two movies about weird virtual realities.
yeah, Johnny Mnemonic actually came out first.
Talk about getting typecast.
I
Wow.
keep saying it weird too, but it's literally like it's Mnemonic.
Yes, mnemonic.
Mnemonic.
Close enough.
Johnny Mnemona.
Do 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 do
It also had a really good pinball machine. I think to put it
do.
this way, like to kind of like joke about it, the plot was that he got some information in his brain, but it was corrupted and bad, so he was having like aneurysms and was gonna die. But I
Oh
think
shit.
the actual size of the file that he got was like I don't know, like 2 megabytes. It
Oh
was
my
like it's
god.
one of those things where it came out in like it was made in 1995.
I was born that year.
Oh my god, oh my god. But yeah, like here's what I'm going to challenge you. I want you at some point within the next few days, even if it's just clips on YouTube, to just watch bits of Johnny Mnemonic.
Hey, you said it right.
There we go, just to see how crazy it is.
Uh,
Not now, not right now. We still have 20 minutes to
oh
go.
yeah. So you're saying I shouldn't do it during the stream?
I was trying to see if I could put like a picture from it in the stream. You know what I mean? Of like,
Yeah.
well, actually, that would get us copyrighted frozen. I mean, maybe not a screen grab.
I mean, I'm looking at the poster right now, and
Pretty nuts.
it is exactly what I thought it was going to be. Oh, hey, Dolph Lundgren isn't in that too. That's
Yeah,
cool.
I think he played like a weird robotic Jesus who was also an assassin. I think.
Those were the best words you've ever said, John. Like, unironically.
So, what do we need to determine next? I mean, if we look at categories, there's a few of the things we could figure out. I mean, I think we already have like a solid foundation for what we're kicking around.
Yeah, I mean, we've established that this is a conspiracy website, uh,
Super illegal.
complete,
That would also explain why it's
complete,
super illegal.
completely unmoderated. It seems like official documents get declassified here on accident all the time, and
Whether it's people from the government releasing this stuff themselves, just as a way of
yeah,
blowing off steam, or whether it's like people are like, hey, check out this thing that like I stole from some dude who like there was a folder that was accidentally left on like a subway car, and check this stuff out. Or like, hey, I beat the crap out of some dude and stole his stuff. Check this stuff out. Again, a lot
yeah,
of that could lean into how things in the real world are going and like where that where like the level of chaos is.
totally, yeah. Um, I guess we want to start talking about because so in our first episode where we did 60-minute settlement, we ended up talking a lot about the society of the place. Do we want to kind of get into that here?
We could definitely go into that. So I mean,
Okay,
like, now
like
this is a little bit different because it's not a physical place, so there's probably a lot less need for like conflict, unless one of the things is, oh, what if you do ratings? You have like a ratings board for how like how much information you could dig up, or like what kind of stuff you leak on there. So it's one of those things
yeah,
of like it's a competition. So that's also why people are always trying to like get the best stuff out there. You know what I mean?
it could be like everybody's got a certain like level of karma based on how much they post, whether it's like new topics or like comments. And it couldn't even be that as part of this place, like every set interval of time, the bottom like percentage of people karma wise are just their
Purged.
accounts are just deleted. Yeah.
Oh, I thought of something. I don't know if we want to put this out there or not.
Yeah. Say what you're gonna say.
If you fall to a certain level, not only is your account purged, but all your real world information gets purged, gets like thrown out there.
That would imply that by joining this city website thing, it gets access to your personal information.
I mean, well, if you're getting like let's say like top secret stuff, like I'm assuming that like, which granted maybe you have some dummy stuff, but I'm guessing that like if you really want to like ramp up this thing of like espionage slash, hey, you need to have stakes. Like yeah, like no, you getting into this means like you got to like put your stuff up out there, but like you're gonna see stuff that you never would have access to before. But
Yeah.
that said, like if you do, but also that also might help to combat people from like ducking out or leaving, and also to rule out knocks of like, hey man, like you want
Yeah.
to prove you're not a cop, take a hit of this.
Yes, totally. And so I'm super into that. And I'm thinking between what you said and what I just said, people are probably super incentivized to shitpost as much as they possibly can just to get their karma up, which makes it intrinsically harder to find information that gets accidentally like put somewhere on the site because there's just so much of it you have to go through.
I wouldn't necessarily say like shitpost. I'd say more of like people are constantly out there to do like actual digging and investigation. Because it's like if you need to like feed out like good juicy stuff out there, like being like, hey, look at what my neighbor did. It's like, it's not gonna be super hot, but like, or
Yeah.
check out all these memes. But like, hey, like check out this video of this actual cop prostitution ring of like how the local police are like actively like turning over prostitutes that they've that they have in their whatever to
Yeah.
like make money on the side. Like, just check
Yeah.
out the like and again like depending on what conflict is going on in the real world, like, oh, that truckload of like vaccines that got blown up by terrorists, yeah, here's where it actually is right now.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like you're gonna have a mixture of both people because in the battle to have enough karma to not get deleted and doxxed every year, I guess, you're gonna have people that do very high quality posts
Well, that's
that get a
probably going
lot
to
of
be it. Like, it's
engagement.
probably like a tightrope of like actual like crazy, world blowing up nonsense, while also like check out the Indiegogo I made for potato salad. Like
Yeah,
those two
like
individuals could.
for every one comment thread that's like 10 pages long, there's probably like 20 that are like four comments.
Right, or not even like it's just like so little engagement, but it's engagement for the dumbest thing of like one of the top dudes on it is like the guy who actually revealed what happened with the Kennedy assassination, just as an example, but also like it has a real fake story of how his cat is a superhero, and it's just him like green screening the cat with a cape on doing nonsense, and because it's like such a high level account, it's both get equal amounts of like attention of like,
Yeah.
yeah, man, Supercat's the one who killed President Cyborg 57. It's like, man, that's just you're just a wonder dog apologist.
So, John, let me ask you, if I'm on this website and I want to make a post, what does that look like in this cyber world?
That's a good question.
Because from my perspective, when you're looking at this as a full-on city, I think it'd be pretty cool that when you make a post, you make a building. It's like a one-room shack pretty much. And the more engagement you get, the bigger it gets. So there are probably whole like neighborhoods in this place that are just the most engaged comment threads.
Right, or it even could be like you go to somebody's house, and when you actually go into it, it's not really like a house. It's a representation of it, and it just
It's
pops
just,
up
it's just their
windows like
profile.
blip blip
Yeah.
blip blip blip. Yeah. So it's like you've traveled to the house, and then the house takes you to stuff, and then yeah, like as you get to like the skyscraper level, it's people who are so engaged and have so much content that like, but that's also why like things are constantly shaking up is because at some point you only have so much real estate, you know.
Hmm. And that's why like
You can have a hard
yeah,
civilization cap. You can have like, hey, we're only ever allowed to have like X amount of people on here, and that's why
yeah.
like every so often we're gonna purge old ones and bring new ones in.
It could be like, there could only be 1 million users, and every year we're gonna purge the bottom like 50, the bottom like 10,000.
Yeah, like we're gonna purge like 1% or 10%, like some insane number. So it's like there's always the
Yeah.
need, and like yeah, you guys get in at the bottom floor, and why you're in there is up for the DM to decide. But
So here's something too. Like, do we want it to be represented as like a city, or do we want it to be like a single building, like a hotel almost, where
no,
depending
I
on
kind of like the idea of a city because then you can
okay,
zone it off.
okay. Yeah, yeah, city's cool.
Because then you can also have like fun activities of just like yeah, like I host like quote unquote games that are just like 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 I managed to like make the Windows like stuff to convert it to Jezball. So it's like here's again conspiracy pictures, but in like a Minesweeper format.
Yeah.
I managed to make an actual Punch the Monkey win a PlayStation 5, a real life thing, but like if you fail to punch the monkey, then he divulges your credit card information to a black site.
This is so I desperately want to play in this setting so bad. Like it sounds so cool.
We need to do something with this. This actually is a
Uh,
really fun idea. We just have to figure out like I wouldn't
if
necessarily do it with a D&D thing, but this is definitely something that
no,
would work
no.
well with like
A more free form kind of game,
like an
yeah.
apocalypse world kind of deal, or something like even like Lacuna, where you roll 3d6 and you roll a certain number of d6 to hit a target number.
I feel like the biggest tragedy of this show is that we eventually I'm not saying every week is a hit, but I'm saying we've had enough hits so far that we're just never going to be able to play all of them. And it's like that
Well,
sucks,
the
man.
problem is because like you and me are only two people, and it's like either we're gonna run it for somebody else, or or one of us runs it for the other person and other people. But the downside is there's only so many people who are willing to run games.
Yeah, I'm pretty much a forever DM in one of my groups, and I'm okay with that. I like being a DM, but it's nice to be a player every now and again.
I like doing both. I definitely like doing both.
Yeah,
So I'm trying to think if there's anything else we want to do to kind of put a bow on this because we've got some really solid stuff. We have. Have you been taking any notes by the way, or if not,
I
you might
have
want to maybe do.
I've not taken a single note on this.
How about I'll open up the Google Doc and then
Sounds good. Yeah,
I
because
need you to feedback stuff to me that we've developed. So just give me a
yeah,
second. Hold
because
on.
I've been monitoring the Twitch chat, and granted today we've had no engagement, but one of us
What do we
has
want to
to.
what do we want to call this place?
Oh man, what is the name of this website? That is. I have no idea.
It's got to be something that works with both like conspiracy theory stuff, but also at the same time like
How like smarmy, how like late '90s do we want to get
I
with
think
this
it's got to be
naming?
like really like if we were talking about like conspiracy theory stuff, it's got to be like something involving like Bigfoot, Loch Ness monster, or like one of those lesser known things like Bat Boy or something like that, or like
How about cryptidcoliseum.net?
is that something you just looked up or came up with?
I just came up with it.
No, because I feel like that's too much on just like actual cryptid creatures.
Well,
Like
it could be that the website started out as like a Bigfoot Loch Ness monster kind of website, and it just evolved into like Super Cat versus Rat Boy.
I'm trying to think of is there another word for conspiracy that we can kind of tack on to like city?
Conspiracy synonym.
I'm doing the same thing.
Scheme.
Stratagem,
Machination. Cabal. Ooh.
collusion.
No. Intrigue.
No,
Houseofintrigue.tumblr.com.
no. Unless we do something completely innocuous of just like I don't know, clownpenis.fart.
Yes.
I love that. Love that
Innocuous.
Saturday Night Live bit.
Oh. Oh, that's from Saturday Night Live?
Call like, yeah, it's like a doctor website. It's something fancy, and they're like, join our website at www.clownpenis.fart, and it's like just because we were a little bit late to the internet bandwagon and missed out on all the website names when they were available, doesn't mean that we're not going to take good care of you at www.clownpenis.fart.
John, what about pen.15?
Penn Island.
No, just pen.15.
No, because that's like that's not nothing. It's just pen.15.
Well, it's penis. It
No, I
spells out
know.
penis.
I'm just saying like it's gotta be like something that's actually like could be innocuous. It could be like something of like like a failed website that like is or like Shock Player,
uh,
Shock City.
yeah, yeah. Shock City works.
All right, so in terms of its uh high sci-fi setting because we rolled it's a high sci-fi setting. What was that we rolled? Super high, uh, you know,
Uh,
pretty high tech.
yeah, level 9 tech.
It was a 10 on the sci-fi setting, right?
Yes.
What did we get an 8 on?
The 8 was nothing. The 8 was just my first roll on Roll with Friends.
Heavily populated.
Yeah, 3 out of 4.
There was a and even if
Si
it doesn't need to be 6, it just be multiple factions.
Yeah, multiple factions, high level of crime.
That was like a 8 out of 8 or something like that.
6 out of 6 on crime. And then we got a 7 out of 12 for like renown.
What was that?
We got a 7 out of 12 for how well known it is.
So moderately known.
Yeah. And then we got a 6 out of 8 for something.
How difficult it is to get into.
Yeah, that's the one.
So difficult to enter. 6 out of 8. Was there anything that we specifically rolled for? Everything else is more like just kind of like born out of like brainstorming.
Yeah, everything else was pretty much born out of brainstorming.
So so bottom tier users purged.
Yeah.
Once per year. Information. All personal information dumped onto the main web, which also means that in order to get in,
Mm-hmm.
must provide personal information. As for difficult to enter, it's probably one of those things of like you don't need to be invited, but you need approval to enter.
Yeah.
But that also could tie into like, hey, you need to be able to like provide something to make it worthwhile. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Was there anything else that we kind of came up with that was like,
Well,
the site is used for sharing conspiracy
uh,
theory
do you have that as completely unmoderated?
completely. And I know. People compete for rankings,
Yep. You
visibility.
have you have uh, several high engagement posts next to a lot of low engagement posts.
I mean, we don't really need to get involved with that. And even then, I'm not talking about like high engagement, low engagement. I'm talking like real world, crazy, insane,
Sure.
world shattering information combined with shit posts.
Fair enough.
Like that's how I view it. It's again equal measures. You know, it's equal measures. Somebody has actual alien footage alongside with again the world's fattest potato.
Yeah.
And it's just
Yeah.
anytime that they need something like, hey, that's really cool, but check this out, and it's just a picture of the world's fattest potato.
That is, you know what? I want that to be like the legacy meme for the site. You know, every couple posts, every couple links, it's just the world's fattest potato.
Yeah, it's like again, it's one dude. It was like as just his response of like, oh man, like you have a picture of like um, like I said, like like literally the president like choking a prostitute to death with his hands, and then like underneath it is just some dude in response is like, that's cool, but check this out, and it's just the world's fattest potato, and it got like a million upvotes. Like
Yeah.
to compare, like it elevated the post above it, less because an actual like real world political figure was captured murdering somebody, but of course because it's on this website, like it's not like anybody mainstream is going to do anything about it.
Of course
But then at
not.
the same time, it's like, all right, but it's only second to the first time that the world's fattest potato was posted, and that dude's account immediately shut up overnight. So
World's fattest potato.
yeah, I have it in quotes. World's fattest potato. So this is cool. So I mean, like we didn't really determine what the players would do, but I mean, I think that's all up to the storyteller of like, hey, like I want to tell the
Yeah.
story of like you guys get onto the website for the first time, and it's like you're trying to. I think this might be a bit difficult to plan a campaign for because like unless you have like a specific task or goal, like what are the players gunning for? Like that's the only thing that could be a bit difficult unless it's the idea that you do like a real world role play thing of like, hey, we're gonna make like a fake, like a real Discord of a fake Discord that's like, here's some goofy stuff that's gonna happen. But like, I don't know, like how you manage that unless it's just like, uh, I don't
I
know. Like, I'm trying to think of like what an actual game of this would look like, and that's kind of hard to
yeah,
articulate.
especially within like the, s- I feel like
You need
once
like a
again,
goal. You definitely need like, hey, like I need you to get information on this. Like you are
hmm
hired to do this, or I need to get onto this website because my brother was kidnapped and I think the government is involved and I need to find out how that is. So you're teaming up with a bunch of people to determine that. Or you do like a role playing thing where everybody's playing together, but more like a PvP kind of thing than like a PvE.
oh, like all the players are kind of competing to see who can get to the goal first.
Potentially, or they have their own goals that they're trying to accomplish.
Oh,
Like
you
there's
could, John, this is actually the perfect setting for a paranoia thing. where everyone is working together, but is actually secretly working for themselves or
Yeah,
working against the party. Man, this would actually be a great setting to run paranoia in.
cool. I'm glad we, like I said, I'm glad we managed to come up with something for this. So,
Yeah. Uh, I'm not sure if we stayed true to the original premise of spy op military thing, or if we
no,
kind
I
of let it
think
run free
totally.
with
Like I
us.
said, like, well, it gives you a grounding to kind of work off of, and then some cool directions to spin off of. Like,
Yeah.
what else would you describe? Like, tech war message board battling on.
Yeah, that's pretty spy op.
All right. So again, thank you everybody for watching, or those who catch it in the future. We'll be back in 2 weeks. That is April 26th. Continue to check out Long Island Tabletop for all of the shows we have going on this week. And Jonah, again, thank you as always for joining me tonight.
Naturally, John. I love this show and I love you.
All right. Thank you everyone so much for watching, and enjoy the rest of your day.
Be good to each other.